7. My name is Beatrice Adu. The news is also live on Casmi 107.1 FM and across the world at streetnews.com. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. Ghana Education Service sets up a special committee to investigate report of post-graduation ceremonies, warning to sack all heads who fail to ensure strict compliance with the ban placed on such celebrations.
The sanction could include removing them from office and bringing those who can instill the discipline we want on our campuses.
Also on the program this afternoon. Well, stay with us for details as the Director General hints at possible inclusion of private schools if the probe committee finds the situation widespread. Also on the program this afternoon, rising flood waters in Samraboy in Menfi West forces fresh evacuation of families who had initially sought refuge at a nearby church premises. We'll bring you an update from the devastation. Later on the program, Western Regional Minister Joseph Nelson orders the immediate evacuation of traders operating around the Albert Bosumtwe Sam fishing harbour following a major fire that caused widespread destruction. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. The Ghana Education Service says it is forming a committee to investigate viral report of lavish and flamboyant post-graduation ceremonies at some senior high schools after a ministerial directive that placed immediate ban on such activities. The Director General, Professor Ernest Davis, described the situation as an alien culture, noting that the display of expensive gifts can leave troubling effects on students whose parents cannot afford such lifestyles. Head of schools who fail to implement the ban will face outright dismissal as part of efforts to instill discipline. Reporter Christian Yale joins us with some more. Chris, how worrying is the situation? And really, if you can tell us more about the direction of the Ghana Education Service.
The GES says that focus is gradually shifting from the main rationale behind post-graduation ceremonies. Now, it is a display of, excessive gifts and expensive items like parents gifting their, graduated students with cars and money bouquets. Ordinarily, a school environment should serve as a social equalizer, such that whoever attends a particular school becomes equal with the other person without a necessary, limitation or classes. Now, this means that ordinarily one's academic performance and then their, personal efforts are to be rewarded once they graduate from school or even while they are in school. But that is drifting, and then now focus is now shifting towards, financial privilege, such that if you come from a less privileged home, then it means that you are unable to enjoy some of these. We can listen to the Director General of the Ghana Education Service, who says that they do not want a situation where children from less privileged homes would be affected psychologically and will go home and ask their parents why they couldn't do similar things for them.
While management is not against the practice of parents and guardians celebrating achievement of their children or wards, management is against the practice of such ostentatious displays by parents on school premises. This is not a kind of school culture the service and many Ghanaians support. In order to ensure that this practice does not gain roots in the school culture, management wishes to inform the general public that henceforth, post-examinations celebrations that are characterized by lavish presentation of items such as motor vehicles to students are prohibited on school premises. Parents who want to do so can do so at home. All post-examination flamboyant celebrations and graduation ceremonies are banned until further notice. We believe that schools are designed to promote social equalizers where merit and personal effort take priority over economic status. Ostentatious displays of wealth by parents on school premises create visible socioeconomic divisions, shift the focus from academic achievement to financial privilege, and can foster psychological distress among students whose parents are not able to compete in such flamboyant celebrations. We don't want the situation where students will go home and ask parents why they couldn't give them cars.
So that was the Director General of the Ghana Education Service. But Christian Yale, he went on to talk about how worrying the situation is. What kind of picture did he paint?
Immediately, the Ghana Education Service is setting up a committee that would investigate the reports received so far. One thing that I asked him was whether this may affect private schools as well. And he said currently they do not have reports from private schools, but the committee's mandate would also cover, investigations into the private schools, so that if this is widespread, the ban would be extended to the private schools as well. We can again listen to him on this speech.
A committee will be formed to review all celebrations on school premises, including speech and prize-giving days, and come out with guidelines to ensure standardization. This will help address challenges associated with some of these celebrations. The rationale for this directive is to tell parents, guardians, and all Ghanaians for that matter, that excessive show of wealth is not the kind of value GES want to project and prioritize among students. We haven't actually had a report involving private schools. But if we investigate and we see that it's widespread, we'll make sure that it doesn't become part of our school culture here at all. So we'll look into what the private schools are doing as well.
And you heard the Director General of the Ghana Education Service, Professor Ernest Kofi Davis. Earlier, you heard my colleague Christian Yale bringing us an update as regards what transpired at that press conference earlier today. Meanwhile, the National Council of Parent-Teacher Associations has thrown its support behind the Ministry of Education and Ghana Education Service's directive banning extravagant graduation ceremonies in pre-tertiary schools. In a statement, the council says that schools must focus on character development, discipline, and learning rather than costly ceremonies, arguing that excessive graduation celebrations promote entitlement and place unnecessary financial burdens on parents. The council is also calling for a review of graduation practices across schools to ensure they align with national policy and Ghanaian values. And we should be bringing you some more as regards to what the council is saying. But earlier, Educationist Kofi Asare also endorsed the GES's directive, and he says the move is long overdue. He spoke to me earlier on New Day on TV3.
The directive from the ministry to GES and GES's directive was a vital intervention, and it came, if not at the right time, at least it came to salvage the situation. Probably it should have come much earlier because some schools have already had theirs. But it came in vital in the midst of the storm. I think the directive is ad hoc, and that, of course, the suspension pending discussions on guidelines are seen in the directive. In my opinion, the ministry should not move into guidelines. We cannot, we know what our system can regulate and what our system cannot regulate. These are one of the things that definitely cannot be regulated. And so we shouldn't be tricked into going into guidelines and trying to see how we can regulate this. It's very difficult to regulate it. I believe that The ceremony itself, the graduation ceremony, it solves no problem. Neither would its affairs create any problem. And so we should be thinking about abolishing it outright. Parents pay for the ceremony. So we ask ourselves, how do we gain? Not just economic costs, but also, social costs. As we are saying, it's not just an activity, okay? And I don't see this public system as being capable of regulating it. We shouldn't add it to our troubles. We have a lot of things we fail and struggle to regulate, and many things we are still struggling to regulate. And so if it is possible, the ministry should, in the process of review, consider banning it totally. The negative impact of what you're witnessing is on the psyche.
And you heard Kofi Asare, he's Executive Director of the Africa Education Watch. We stay on education, and the Universities Teachers Association of Ghana, UTAG, has given government up to the 30th of June to resolve a number of outstanding conditions of service and welfare issues affecting lecturers and other academic staff across the country's public universities. They warn that failure to do so could trigger nationwide industrial action. The ultimatum was issued by UTAG's National Executive Council following its quarterly meeting held at the University of Health and Allied Sciences in Ho in the Volta region. The association says that prolonged delays in addressing key concerns are eroding confidence in the collective bargaining process and creating uncertainty among members. Among the issues cited are government's failure to sign and implement an interim salary adjustment agreement already negotiated by all parties, delays in the renewal and regularization of post-retirement contract, as well as unpaid online teaching support allowances for research fellows, academic librarians, and some university staff. UTAG also raised concerns of unpaid salary arrears for some staff of the University of Media, Art and Communication, outstanding promotion arrears in several public universities, and delays in the payment of the 2026 book and research allowance. Some other news here, and the flood situation at Samreboy in the Amenfi West municipality of the Western region continues to worsen, with rising water levels forcing the evacuation of families who had sought refuge at a Methodist church near the river. Irama Smith has more in this report.
What began as a heavy downpour on Monday, June 15, has turned into a catastrophe, with the Sama and Tano rivers bursting their banks. Floodwaters swallowed more than 200 homes in Aboy, Kokwase and Popolozo, collapsing 26 buildings and claiming 2 young lives. Residents blamed years of galamsey, blocked waterways and choked drains for turning heavy rain into a full-blown disaster. Now, affected families housed at the Methodist church close to the river are being moved to a new location amid fears the floodwaters could rise again. Hundreds remain displaced, sheltering in schools and churches as authorities race to prevent further loss of life. The big question still hangs over Samreboy. Will this tragedy finally force Ghana to confront the monster that is galamsey, or will we wait for the next flood? Irama Smith.
And Irama Smith brought us that report from the Western region. Let's go on the phone lines now and speak to Ewula Sawa, founder of Eco-Conscious Citizens, whose entity issued a release recently on the threat of flooding. Good afternoon to you, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
As you heard, residents of Samreboy are blaming galamsey for worsening the floods. From an environmental perspective, though, how strong is this link between illegal mining and flooding incidents such as this one?
I think that the residents are right. I mean, we have heavy rains and maybe there'll be flooding from time to time. But there's no doubt at all that human activity, the irresponsible mining that is going on, there is no doubt at all that it has greatly contributed to what is happening right now. And it's totally unacceptable because it is preventable. It is preventable. For a long time now, we've been talking about illegal mining, the consequences of illegal mining. Water is life, the poisoning of our water bodies. We've been talking about the fact that we face an existential threat. We've talked about the rise in kidney disease. We've also talked about the environment. If you keep on disturbing the environment the way we are doing, worse than what is happening will take place. So as was said before, we should not wait for the next rains to come. We need to start acting now. Why can we not stop the irresponsible miners from causing havoc? There's no reason why we cannot do this.
I'm seeing the images, and the images show real devastation, but really looking at the circumstances, could this have been prevented?
Of course it could have been prevented, or at worst minimized. Of course it could have been. The writing has been on the wall. The writing has been on the wall that this short game situation, this illegal mining, and it's not just like it's illegal, it's the irresponsible nature of it. For a long time we've been saying, stop it. Then all sorts of excuses are given. They don't have a livelihood. It's not a question of a livelihood. It's a question of the fact that they are destroying the environment for everybody. As we speak right now, even in Atiwa, the once pristine Atiwa Forest Reserve is also being destroyed by illegal miners. They haven't had water, I am told, since September. Some say since July. Whatever the case, they haven't had water for a while because of the activities of illegal mining, which is making it very difficult for Ghana water to, purify the water. So we know the consequences, but somehow we don't want to stop it. We need the political will to stop this mayhem, or something worse will happen. When I look at the photos, it's devastating. I wouldn't like to be in that position. But there's a lot we can do to stop it. And we don't seem to see the urgency in stopping this unacceptable illegal mining that is taking place and which is engulfing Ghana.
In the meantime, though, looking at the devastation caused by not just the flooding, we understand also that the Samre and the Tano rivers reportedly burst their banks as well after heavy rains. What would you expect of authorities?
Well, the professionals would know what to do. I'm an environmentalist, but I don't pretend to have the expertise to know what to do. All I know is that we should all play our role. We should all understand that God gave us this beautiful environment. We're not supposed to be diverting waters. We see the Galamseyers diverting waters for their purposes, and all these activities they engage in are having a negative effect on the environment. So the duty bearers, they know what to do, and they should just do it, irrespective of who is being affected, in the sense of maybe persons, what they call high flyers, who may have a stake in what is going on. You see, it's a matter of life and death now, and we need to do the proper thing. So those engineers, the disaster management people, they are the professionals. They know what to do. They have to do it, and they should not be put off by any interference. They have to just do the work they have been mandated to do, as simple as that.
Thank you.
Illegal mining need not be taking place the way it is.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Aula Sewa, for speaking to us. And Heather Aula Sewa, she is with the Eco-Conscious Citizens. She's actually founder of Eco-Conscious Citizens. Thank you very much for speaking to us. Let's remain in the Western region, where the Regional Minister, Joseph Nelson, has asked for the immediate cessation of all commercial activities and total evacuation of traders operating at the food market and surrounding areas of the Albert Bosom Chinsam Fishing Harbour in Sekondi. The directive follows a fire outbreak at the harbour's premix fuel station on Sunday, which destroyed several properties. Irama Smith again.
According to the fire safety officer at the Albert Bosomchisam Fishing Harbour, DCFO Jimmy Nab Daisy, heavy rains at about 3:30 p.m. caused vegetation and portions of a slope around the premix fuel dump to collapse. The runoff and mudslide subsequently pushed down a nearby electricity pole, which fell between premix fuel tanks and sparked a fire. This quickly spread to other fuel tanks in the vicinity, triggering a major inferno. Several structures, makeshift stalls, carts, and 2 vehicles parked nearby were reduced to ashes. Fire tenders from the Ghana National Fire Service, Port of Takoradi, and the Ghana Air Force, with support from fisherfolk in the area, battled the blaze for several hours before bringing it under control. On Monday morning, the Western Regional Minister, Joseph Nelson, accompanied by the Omahene of Esikado Traditional Area, Nana Kwabena Nketia V, and officials of the Port of Takoradi toured the scene to assess the extent of damage. Beyond the fire incident itself, the team observed that other portions of vegetation and weakened slopes overlooking sections of the fishing harbour posed a significant risk of further collapse. The regional minister directed that all commercial activities at the food market and adjoining areas cease immediately and traders fully evacuated from the affected zone as a precautionary measure.
Beyond the incident of last night, we should be looking at how to prevent any more such incident happening. And clearly looking at the whole area, you see the threat of another landslide happening anytime soon because the rains have not stopped. And so in the discussions that we just had, I think that the key decision in this is to ask everybody who is in the way to evacuate because nobody can predict. In fact, we couldn't predict this one. And so now that this has given us a clear indication of what could happen.
Director of the Port of Takoradi, Captain James Richard Quayson, disclosed that management had on several occasions attempted unsuccessfully to halt and relocate premixed fuel activities from active operational areas of the fishing harbour.
The people must understand this. But these tanks, I know there'll be consistent call of them to relocate until now. Very unfortunate. And see, the management look at it and then do the appropriate thing to safeguard the property, the facility, safeguard our people. Our people are very important. So management look at it and then come back.
At the time of filing this report, public announcements were being made to inform traders and other occupants of the decision to suspend activities and evacuate the area. Irama Smith, TV3 News, Esikado, Western Region.
Now, the National Democratic Congress is honoring its founder and former President Jerry John Rawlings in recognition of his enduring contributions to the party and Ghana's democratic development. The event has brought together party leaders, supporters and members of the Rawlings family to reflect on his legacy, leadership and the values that continue to shape the NDC's political philosophy. Our reporter Samuel Yeboah Adams is there. He joins us live on the line. Samuel, what more can you report? Hello, Sammy, can you hear me?
Hello.
Yes, Samuel,
Hello.
What can you report from this event? Who is there? What has been said so far?
Okay, the party, now today the NDC has officially renamed its party head office to Jerry John Rawlings House. They also unveiled a bust in his honor, and at the event, party leaders reflected on how his principles of accountability, discipline, social justice and national service continue to guide their mandate. And when addressing the gathering, the party's General Secretary, PCC Abikweti, emphasized on the need for the party to evaluate whether what they have been doing, whether they have been true to exactly the deep principles of former President Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. And then they will be able to continue that legacy and follow his path. On his side, the national chairman of the party, that is Johnson Esiedun Ketia, also made mention on how the party executive, the National Executive Committee, deliberated and researched on what to do to honor the late former president, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings. And according to him, they made a lot of deliberation and had to settle on the fact that they name a monument and also honor him with a renaming of their national head office. Then the president was also in attendance. And for the president, he emphasized and touched on how the former president, Flight Lieutenant Jerry John Rawlings, was influential in his governance. And in a heartfelt tribute, he described the impact of Rawlings in his governance and touched on some of the principles that he stood for, which are still relevant today in this current generation. To continue the work he started, he reaffirmed the party's commitment to formulating policies that will align with the responsibility Ghanaians have entrusted in their hands. And finally, there is going to be an exhibition and a public lecture which will be addressed by the Venerable Chachu Chikata at the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences today at exactly 4 p.m.
Thank you very much. And that was my colleague Samuel Yeboah Adams bringing us an update from the National Democratic Congress head office, which is currently honoring its founder and former President Jerry John Rawlings in recognition of his enduring contributions to the party at Ghana's democratic development. The Ghana Health Service in the Eastern Region to ensure the early says delayed diagnosis can worsen mental health outcomes, reduce
Cause poor road conditions makes driving at night more dangerous. With potholes and uneven surfaces difficult to detect, they believe stronger lightning help them avoid accidents.
I'm a driver from Kumasi. I'm going to focus on the car's own light. It doesn't help us, especially during rainy season. For example, when you are from Tamale to Walwa, the potholes on the way makes it very difficult for us to maneuver safely to our destination.
Others say fixing the roads would remove the need for such modification altogether.
There are so many potholes on the road, which is why we normally rely on the lamps, because it helps us a lot with visibility. But since authorities are saying it goes against the laws of the country,
Nadrat Mohammed filed that report, and coming up shortly now is Business Daily with Michael Obudu. My name is Beatrice Adu. Log on to streetnews.com for more news.
Hello there, good afternoon and welcome to Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. Coming up, Ghana still ranks amongst top 10 countries with highest cost of borrowing despite recording Africa's sharpest policy rate cut. We'll bring you details on new AFDB report. Also, rural and community banks grow assets to 25.3 billion cedis as deposits surge and lending expands to nearly 50%. Plus, government suffers treasury bill under subscription in tender 2012 as investors offer 4.2 billion cedis against 5.27 billion cedis target. I am Michael Obudu. Details of these and many other stories lined up for you. Do stay tuned. Well, thank you too much for your time. Straight into our top story. And despite recording the sharpest reduction in policy rates on the African continent over the past year, Ghana remains amongst the countries with the highest lending rates, according to the African Development Bank's 2026 African Economic Outlook report. The report highlights that while the Bank of Ghana has aggressively eased monetary policy amid declining inflation, businesses and households continue to face relatively high borrowing costs. This 3 Business News Desk report has more.
Bank's 2026 African Economic Outlook. According to the African Development Bank's 2026 African Economic Outlook, Ghana's policy rate currently stands at 14%, placing it alongside the Gambia and behind countries such as Zimbabwe, Nigeria, Malawi, Egypt, Angola, Sierra Leone, and Liberia. The report notes that Ghana reduced its policy rate by 9 percentage points between December 2024 and December 2025, making it one of 4 African countries to slash rates by 8 percentage points or more as inflationary pressures eased. The Bank of Ghana further lowered the monetary policy rate from 28% in early 2025 to 14% by May 2026, reflecting improving macroeconomic conditions and declining inflation. However, the AFDB says the cost of borrowing remains elevated. Data from the Bank of Ghana shows the average lending rate stood at 16.33% in April 2026, although this represents a decline from more than 20% at the beginning of the year. The central bank has maintained the policy rate at 14%, citing risks to inflation and growth, while pledging to closely monitor global geopolitical developments and their potential impact on the domestic economy.
And that was a 3 Business News Desk report. Now, Ghana's rural and community banking sectors recorded strong growth in the year to March 2026, with total assets rising by almost 25% to exceed 25 billion cedis. The expansion was driven by higher deposits, stronger capital position, and a sharp increase in lending, highlighting the sector's growing role in supporting financial inclusion and economic activity in underserved communities. This report has more.
Latest data from the Bank of Ghana shows total assets of rural and community banks increased by nearly 25% to 25.3 billion cedis, up from 20.3 billion a year earlier. Customer deposit, which remained the sector's main source of funding, also rose by over 25% to 21.7 billion cedis, reflecting sustained public confidence in the institutions. The sector's capital position improved considerably, with shareholders' funds increasing by more than 41% to 2.5 billion cedis. On the lending front, loans and advances recorded the fastest growth, jumping by more than 48% to almost 7 billion cedis. This points to increased credit support for farmers, traders, small businesses, and households across the country. Despite the stronger lending activity, rural and community banks continue to maintain a cautious balance sheet structure, with more than half of total assets still invested in bills and bonds. The figures underscore the sector's growing importance in advancing financial inclusion, although experts say stronger credit risk management and governance will be crucial as loan books continue to expand.
And that was a 3 Business News Desk report. Now, some more stories. Now, government fell short of its borrowing target during its weekly treasury bill auction on Friday, June 19, 2026, seeking to raise 5.274 billion cedis under tender 2012. Across the standard 3 short-term tenors, the state suffered an undersubscription of 1.067 billion cedis that abruptly broke a 2-week streak of oversubscription. The following 3 Business News Desk report has more.
Domestic investors offered a total of 4.206 billion cedis, desperate for liquidity to support fiscal operations. Government chose to accept 4.206 billion cedis. That is 100% of the bid standard, even though it meant leaving a major funding gap. Subscription rate was 79.77% and acceptance rate was 100%, while the undersubscription rate was 20.23%. The funding shortfall government experienced by failing to hit its target of 5.274 billion cedis was 1.067 billion cedis. Market dynamics forced yields to inch up marginally across the board. The breakdown of the auction shows that a short-term 91-day bill brought in the largest chunk of cash, with government securing 2.257 billion cedis, with government accepting 2.257 billion cedis at a yield of 5.30%. The midterm 182-day bill pulled in 802.87 million cedis. While government took all 802.87 million cedis at an interest rate of 7.13%. The longest tenor, the 364-day bill, brought in 1.146 billion cedis, and government bought all 1.146 billion cedis at a yield of 11.36%. Analysts point out that while the state took everything available on the table, it highlights growing hesitation among primary market investors to fully fund the government's current appetite for short-term debt.
And that was a 3 Business News Desk report. Away from that, government is considering the option of transferring the control of Goldfields Tarkwa mines to local firms when the current lease expires in April 2027. According to Bloomberg, the potential move comes as the government seeks greater ownership of the gold industry, with gold prices continuing to rise on the international market. Under the proposed plan, the local miners will need to submit bids for government evaluation if the plan proceeds. And that's how we end today's edition of Business Daily here on 3FM 92.7. For more stories, please check out our website. It's 3news.com/business. You can also join me tonight on Business Focus on TV3 at 6 p.m. for more updates from the world of business. I am Michael Obudu. Thank you for tuning in. As always, please stay safe.